Hello, welcome to Win Some Loosemore. My name is Dieter, and you join me for a new little series that I'm going to be doing, looking at different board game mechanisms. Now, we, as you may know, if you've seen other videos that we've done, are still relatively new to the hobby. I'd only say we've been playing board games, this style of board games, these designer board games, for about 2 or 3 years. Certainly our interest grew soon after we got married, because we needed more things to do together since we lived together after being married, and so we discovered more and more that we liked some of the things that were available to us, but we are still quite new and still at the point of discovery. Every time I find a new game, it's generally I'm interested in it because it offers something we haven't seen before. Now, I know a lot of other reviewers and video content creators and podcasters and all these kinds of people have seen lots and lots of stuff, and I love watching their content. I really do. I love consuming it however it comes, because I like learning, and we have generally found that a lot of that is excellent for people who already have a basis of understanding for what they're talking about, and what our heart really for doing videos at all. I mean, I like talking about games, so I'll do stuff. I do my wire likes and a few things, but what we really wanted to do was to provide people a way into this hobby, finding things that they enjoy about it so they can explore it. Now, we were taught lots of things, so we want to pass that on to you as well. And so what I wanted to do was to look at what people will refer to as either mechanics or mechanisms. Now, these are how the game works, how you either physically or mentally have to go about doing the thing that makes you win. We will have mentioned a few of these before, so hopefully now is the time to catch you up on those, or I'll introduce some, and I'll try and do a little video on not all of them. There are so many mechanics, some broad, almost genre-defining mechanisms, and some very small things about how cards are arranged. It could be as a simple thing as that, so I won't go into every single one. Certainly the first few will be the much more broad genre mechanisms, and I'll explain what that means as we go into them. And so I'm going to start with one that, personally speaking, I don't actually really like, but it's one that most people are familiar with and is often the main mechanism that they think of when I say I like playing board games. This is one of the main things they think of, what we generally call roll and move. We call it that because it's self-explanatory. It's generally there is a die or a few dice, you roll them, and that number determines either what you can do or how far you go. So Monopoly, Trivial Pursuit, these kinds of things are what we would call roll and move. And the reason I don't like it, in each of these videos I'll try and give an example game for you to check out, or a couple that play with the mechanism a little bit. And the one I'm going to focus on today isn't either of the two big ones that I've mentioned already. I recently played a game called 221B Baker Street, and this is available in lots of different places, Waterstones and such things. And it's a Sherlock Holmes themed game, and it does something interesting with the mechanism if it's one you like. So rather than it being a Monopoly type thing where you're moving around the board to accrue as much as possible, everybody is trying to solve the same mystery in 221B. So everybody gets the story at the beginning, and then there's this really, I'd say, well put together book with numbers and clues. And so you, by rolling and moving your piece, are going to different locations around the board to discover pieces of information, and then you make a note of it yourself. This isn't cooperative, you're not sharing that information with others, you're figuring it out yourself. And then when you feel like you've got enough clues, like Clue or Cluedo, you then go to the specific spot and declare, I think it's this, and it's a deduction style game, so you've got all your clues, you're trying to say it's this person for this reason. And if you're right, you win. If not, are you out? I don't remember. I only played it the once. And I'll tell you why I didn't like it, and why generally I don't like this mechanism, particularly in this game, and most others. And I'll give an example where I don't think this rule applies, but generally in this and several others, higher rolls were better. And so then your entire game is determined by the luck of the roll. And for some people, in some contexts, that's great. That's a really simple way of getting people in. It removes the necessity of the deep strategic thinking, which for some people works really well. And they're saying this game, particularly because it's got that storybook, because you're actually doing something, you're trying to solve something, that can really appeal to people. And I think that's a nice implementation of the roll and move, is to put it within this deduction style game. That's really cool. But I didn't win because I kept not moving far, and so it's always the same clue at the same location. And I could tell that certain people who had been to specific locations, the same ones, were getting a clue worth having, and I kept getting little bits and pieces that didn't really mean anything. And so I wanted to go to where they'd been, so I got that key piece of information to make sense of other stuff, and it just took me forever to get there. Now there's one space on the board that allows you to immediately go anywhere else, fine, but I was already so far away from that. I hadn't played the game before to know that that's probably a good one to start with and to keep coming back to, that I just was behind. And actually I'd figured it out probably at the same time as the person that won, but then it kept rolling 1s and 2s, and they kept rolling 5s and 6s, and so got back to the place where you make your announcement, your guess. So it just wasn't an enjoyable experience for me. As I say, if you like that randomness and it's a very light-hearted setting that you want to play in, great. It's a good one. As I say, the narrative thing was a nice touch. It's better than Monopoly for me, because it was very much it was just something else to do. Monopoly, I don't actually dislike playing Monopoly, but there are good spots, and if you can land on those early, you're in a much stronger position. I would argue oranges are the best to go for. I'm sure many people who love Monopoly will argue, and there's all sorts of good places to go. I love getting the oranges. But if you don't land on that stuff, and you keep landing on the taxes, and you keep landing on people's hotels just because of luck of the roll, you're going to get screwed. And that's just the way it is. And that annoys me. That frustrates me. Now, this isn't always the case. And the context in which I think it works, and I've enjoyed it, bends the mechanism slightly. There is a game aimed at children called Outfoxed that we actually got for one of our nieces, I think, and we've played it with them. And one of the mechanisms is roll and move. So on your turn, you always roll a few dice. And what I really like is that you immediately have a choice. You get to roll again if you want, or you get to roll some of them again. So this is introducing another mechanism I'll talk about another day, that's made popular by a game called Yahtzee, where you get to re-roll a few times. Now, one of the things you can do with those dice is move. And so now there's an option for roll and move to go find clues. Again, it's a deduction style game, interestingly. And that just works for me. It still is an incredibly light game. It's definitely aimed at children. It's not like, oh, that was an incredible experience. Like, it's nowhere near my top 100 games or anything, but it's just really well done. It's a lovely take that roll and move is a choice, not your entire game is determined by if I rolled well. There's some of that because it's still dice based, but then there's tension, and it's cooperative. Maybe that helps as well. I don't know. But I think having a way of mitigating the dice slightly, or the deterministic nature of a roll and move, some way of mitigating that, I think solves that issue. So if you ever hear us kind of scoffing about some of these, what people might, more traditional board games. It's more likely the deterministic nature of it that we dislike, rather than it is fundamentally a bad game. So that's Roll and Move, and probably my most negative one. Thought I'd get one out of the way first. So it's just going to be me enjoying and praising things and suggesting games. But as I say, for Roll and Move, Outfoxed. I really like it because it incorporates a slightly different mechanism we'll talk about next time. And so I would love to hear in the comments Roll and Move games you enjoy, mechanisms you want to hear about. You may have heard names like worker placement, area control, those kinds of things. I'm going to try and get to all of those. But if there's particular ones you want to hear about, let me know, or suggestions of games that you dislike or really like that use some of these mechanisms. That would be brilliant for you to put down in the comments. We love hearing from you guys. I'm really encouraged to see that comments and things are picking up on Instagram, so thank you so much for communicating with us. We'd love to do more of that. But for now, that's it. Do subscribe to this channel if you don't already, and hit the bell icon. As I say, we're on Instagram, we're on social media platforms generally across the board. Searching Win Some Loosemore, you'll find us. But I will be back soon with another one of these mechanism videos. I'll try and think of a pithy name for them. It'll already appear, hopefully. Mechanics, mechanisms. I'll do some research and see if there's a specific one that is correct. People seem to use them interchangeably. We'll figure that out. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Dieter for Win Some Loosemore. Goodbye.